This is the new LH6, Arken's second focal plane LPVO, which I might like better than their first. Really? Well, let's test it and I'll show you why. Let's skip the typical unboxing video, and let's just see what you get in the box. This is the Arken LH6, a 1:6 power LPVO with a 24mm objective and a 30mm tube. This has a second focal plane BDC reticle and has 9 levels of reticle illumination and 2 night vision compatible levels of illumination. There is an off that you have to set, rotate it to the off position. It's powered by a 2032 coin battery. And it has cap turrets that are low profile, wide diameter. They are resettable, and each click is 0.25 MOA. And let's take a listen. Clicks are muted, but audible and tactile positive on the clicks with no slop. Same with the windage, perhaps even a tad, just a tad louder. And our magnification ring turns smoothly. It does have a little bit of a nub, a fin, to help with leverage and turning, but honestly, doesn't even need that. There does come with a screw-in throw lever should you want to mount one. And our diopter focus turns smoothly. So overall, a nicely put together LPVO in second focal plane, and we'll take a look at the reticle and the illumination next. Before we get started with the test, I'd just like to take a quick break here to talk about this episode's sponsor, Aura. For the cost of just a VPN, I'm getting a whole suite of security services, including $1 million in identity theft insurance, and they're even removing me from those damn data broker listings. Use my link, aura.com/moondog, and you can try them for 14 days, free. And if you use that link, you're helping to support this channel. You know, identity fraud is a real thing, and with AI, it's all too easy to spoof your identity. That's why you should try out Aura. All right, let's get back to the tests. We are looking through the Arken LH6 at its lowest power of 1 to see if 1 really truly is 1 and true to real life. And you can compare the objects that I'm bringing in and out of the scope view to that outside of the scope. But overall, it's sharp from center to outer edge, so you don't get the kind of fish eyeing that you usually get with lower quality optics. All right, I'm going to bring this up to 3 power. And that image is still very true to life. You can compare the color of the sky inside of the scope to that outside of the scope, and it's really spot on and still very clear due to its ED glass. Now let's bring it all the way up to 6 power. Take a look at the hilltop there, and that hilltop is 1,400 yards away. And it's clear enough through the scope that I can make out the trail marker sign at the top of the hill, and that's a little tiny white dot at the very top of the hill there. This scope is amazingly sharp, even for a 6 power scope. Alright, let's turn this over to a darkened tree trunk nearby. Now let's turn on our illumination, and that is maximum 9 power, and it's quite clear. You can see that horseshoe of death reticle, and even at 1 power, as I'm moving this around, it's still visible in the sky, and even visible on this white garage door, even in broad daylight. So I would say this is daylight bright. We are looking through the LH6 at our reference targets downrange at 100 yards with the scope set at its lowest power of 1 to get our best overall view through the glass. Now let's bring this all the way up to its maximum of 6 power and take a look at our reference targets. Can't see anything inside with much detail at this distance and this magnification, but it's a good opportunity to check our range of adjustments, starting with our elevation. And that's the very top. Still a pretty decent amount of adjustment there. Let's see where our bottom is. Wow. Okay. Okay, there's the very bottom. No dead clicks. So pretty decent amount of range of adjustments. Okay, let me get this to factory 0. Now let's check out our windage. Alright, that's the right extent. And that is the left extent. It's a pretty decent range of adjustments. We get this back to factory 0. Alright, let's move up to 50 yards and take a look at those reference targets again. Alright, we are at 50 yards now. We have the scope set at 1 power again. Let's bring this back up to 6 power and take a look at our reference targets there. And the first thing I see is chromatic aberration, the purple fringe around our reference target boards, both the larger target to the left and our main reference target in the center there in lane 10. But there is pretty decent color rendition, maybe a little bit on the warm side, but overall good vibrancy in the color card on the top left of our reference board. Below that, in the paper target, you can easily make out the reactive sticker target in the center of that, but I don't see the two 22 caliber holes below that. It's not, I can maybe get a hint of one of them, but no, not really. And in terms of resolution, looking for both vertical and horizontal lines in our reference target, our resolution chart on the bottom right, and I can make out down to element 6 in group -2. Now we are lined up with our grid target on the top right, and that is an MOA grid. So if I dial in 16 MOA, that brings us to our next diamond corner target, and if I dial in 16 on our elevation, that brings us into our next diamond target, and if I dial back 16, puts us into our next diamond target, and if I dial this back to 0, we're right back where we started. So not only does this pass the box test, but also tracks. I'd like to thank Arken for sending out the LH6 for me to test, and I've been very anxious to get my hands on one of these after I first heard about them, because it really checks all the boxes in what I'm looking for in an LPVO. For starters, it's a 1:6, which I've found I prefer because 1:6s tend to have a more forgiving eye box than a 1:10 or even a 1:8. And this is a second focal plane reticle, which I prefer in LPVOs. Now, I know there's folks who think that first focal plane is the way to go because it's the new hotness. It's more advanced than second focal plane. But I beg to differ, especially with an LPVO, because a first focal plane is fine if you have it at its maximum power, but once you bring it down to 1 power, where you really should be spending most of your time with an LPVO, well, that reticle shrinks down and becomes oftentimes too thin and easy to lose when you're moving around and, rapid fire or with a cluttered background. And really, if you're using your LPVO mostly at high power, at 6, 8, or even 10, then why are you using an LPVO? You should just be using a regular scope with maybe a red dot piggyback. But let me know in the comments what you think. If you think second focal plane or first focal plane is the way to go with an LPVO. Now, the other thing I like about this, very good clarity, and also speaking of the reticle, I do like the KL box reticle design. I think it's a very brilliant design for a first focal plane for long range shooting. For 1 power, for a second focal plane LPVO, I do actually find that KL box ladder a little bit of a clutter for the most part. And I'm not advocating that Arken remove that entirely, because I do find it useful for the case that you are shooting long range. I just think that they could modify it for this particular LPVO, maybe remove the first rung of that ladder and remove some of the numbering and make it a much faster reticle and a little less cluttered. And of course, rename that the Moondog reticle, and I won't even charge you any royalty fees. So yeah, you're welcome. And by the way, this is also a very reasonably priced LPVO in my opinion. So if you're interested in picking one up, I've included product links as well as more information in my full write-up at moondogindustries.com. You'll find a link to that article in this video's description. If you use those links, you help support this channel. And you can always help support this channel for free by simply hitting the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell buttons if you're not already subscribed to this channel. And that's absolutely free. They don't charge you to be a subscriber to my channel. So I appreciate you taking the time to press those buttons and taking the time to watch this video. God bless. Moondog out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.